Welcome to another episode of the Best You podcast. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Carolyn Dean, an expert on magnesium with an impressive background as a certified dietitian-nutritionist, naturopath, and Chinese medicine herbalist. In this episode, we're going to explore the vital role that magnesium plays in our bodies, why so many of us are deficient in magnesium, and the negative side effects of this deficiency. Dr. Carolyn Dean was also going to shed light on the importance of magnesium for sleep, for headaches and bone health, and share her daily magnesium supplementation habits. By the end of our conversation, you're going to have a comprehensive understanding of why magnesium is essential and how you can ensure you're getting enough of it in your diet. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the follow button on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode packed with valuable health and fitness and wellness insights. Excited to have this episode with Dr. Carolyn Dean, where we're going to learn all about magnesium, why we're deficient, what we can do to supplement for our deficiency, and much more. But for now, it's time to get closer and closer to your best you with Dr. Carolyn. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am really excited to be joined by the one and only Dr. Carolyn Dean. Dr. Dean, I am really excited because I haven't had anybody who is specifically a magnesium expert on the podcast, and I hear more and more people who are supplementing with magnesium, and I have personally just admittedly never experimented with supplementing with magnesium or anything like that. Don't really know too much about the supplement as a whole, and so I'm really excited to both educate myself today and further educate the audience. So I want to start off kind of just simplistically with regards to magnesium, of like, what is the role that magnesium has in the body? I know it has a lot of different roles, but try to educate us, generally speaking, on what the role is of magnesium in the body.
Well, I guess, Nick, coming into your world where you're motivating people to take care of their bodies, their health, there's a lot of athletes that follow you. Well, magnesium is necessary for 80% of known metabolic functions in the body. It's necessary for making muscles work properly and nerves work properly. When a nerve or a muscle fires, what happens is calcium has to get into the cell to create that action potential. And what opens up the doorway for that to happen is magnesium. If you don't have magnesium, the doorway is just kind of partially open. A lot of calcium gets in, and then you get your twitches, your muscle spasms, your lactic acid buildup. You get all kinds of detrimental effects that aren't even attributed to magnesium deficiency. And then when you consider there are 600 muscles in the body, any one of them, like the eye twitching or even esophageal spasms, you swallow a big supplement and you choke on it. Any muscle in the body, your diaphragms can be in spasm and cause problems with your breathing. Any muscle in the body, if it's magnesium deficient, can go into spasm. Nerves, 45 miles of nerves in the body. Any area of those nerves can be affected by magnesium deficiency. So it's huge. I mean, I'm talking about 80% of known metabolic functions. So that's head to foot. That's looking at how sugar is handled, how energy is made, so many things in the body. Like someone will say to me, well, what about this? And there's a way to look at it. The detoxification processes, people go on these big, I'm on a liver cleanse, I'm on a bowel cleanse. If you take the right kind of magnesium that gets into your cells, then your body will start detoxifying. Your body's immune system will start working better. I mean, I can't say enough about it. And I've got the books to prove it. People really need to know about this, but we'll get to it, Nick. It's so much about the type of magnesium that people are using, because we're all using magnesium compounds that aren't absorbed into the cells.
Yeah, that was great. And I'm excited to dive actually into a little bit more of the muscles and nerves impacts a little bit. But before we dive into maybe some of the nitty gritty there, I want to talk about why why this is such an issue, right? Like if we're experiencing so many of these like negative side effects and symptoms, if you will, of magnesium deficiency, why is it such a big issue? I know that we're oftentimes unable to get it in our diet because the farming and the soil, and then there's stress related things that come along with lower levels of magnesium. So talk to us about the different things that are going on in our life, in our environment, et cetera, that are causing us to be magnesium deficient.
Well, you've mentioned several of them, but let's just start with what we all went through in the past 2-3 years. We've all got PTSD from being fear bombed for a couple of years that we were all going to die. I mean, how does the body deal with that? So the adrenal glands are putting out the adrenaline, we're racing around, we're anxious, fight or flight, we can't settle down, we can't sleep properly because we're hyper alert because we're going to die. So I think that's number one. And stress, we know about stress, but not many people have translated that into what chemically is happening in the body when you're under stress. When you're under stress, like I said, adrenaline comes out, all these chemical interactions, they're using up our nutrients. Out of the adrenals, your vitamin C is hit, your sodium is hit, your magnesium is hit. And the more stress you're under, then the more you lose these nutrients, and we're not replacing them, just like we don't replace the minerals in the soil. My big effort here in Maui, aside from my dietary supplement company, is a biodynamic organic farm. I put huge effort and money into this farm because I know how important food is. But I personally cannot eat entirely off the farm without getting my severe magnesium deficiency symptoms. And that's how I got into it. I had the problem, so I had to fix it. And my fix wasn't just taking a mineral compound. I actually had to go out and find a chemist who would make a non-laxative magnesium that I could actually take without spending my life in the restroom. So, the layers of the stress, surgical procedures, you go in and you get an inhaled anesthetic to put you to sleep. Those inhaled anesthetics are fluoride drugs. Fluoride drugs will be broken down in the intestines by these crazy bacteria. The microbiome is very busy. It'll break down these drugs and release fluoride. And that fluoride will bind to magnesium and then deposit in tendons and ligaments. And what's the black box warning on a really popular Cipro fluoride drug, the Cipro antibiotic? It says tendon rupture, warning, tendon rupture. And they don't say why, but because I know about magnesium and fluoride, I put the two together. I think it's this magnesium fluoride deposit. It's a crystalline deposit that goes into the tendons. And I've had enough athletes come to me and say, oh, I got a tendon rupture. And then you ask the question, what drugs have you been taking? You want to go to your event and you have a bit of a cold. So, okay, you take your Cipro. And one time may be enough, but if you take several doses, it's cumulative, and it can cause this fluoride breakdown and then the magnesium fluoride compound. And that's something nobody talks about. Yeah. So we've got a lot of fluoride drugs. We've got stress. We've got even just sugar. Eating too much sugar, the body has to process it, and magnesium is used for helping the breakdown of sugar and fructose. So there's probably a dozen reasons.
Yeah, no, that was great. I mean, again, to kind of regurgitate some of them, obviously stress, not getting it through the food because of farming issues, anesthetics, some certain medications, excess sugar, things of that. I kind of want to dive in a little bit more on the stress. So you said that when we are stressed out, our adrenals are essentially producing a lot of hormones, and basically the those adrenals, in order to be on overdrive, are using a lot of the nutrients like magnesium that are then not being depleted in our diet, etc. And so, what is that what it is? Is that why stress causes a deficiency in magnesium, just because magnesium is being used up by the adrenals in order to produce these hormones when we're chronically stressed?
I mean, that's part of the picture. I mean, we can never isolate things into this is all there is and that's why. So you've got a person who's under stress, which we all are, and they don't have enough magnesium to help them sleep, to relax their muscles, to make them feel, like they can smile in the morning. So you start with that, and then you add some more stress. They don't have the magnesium to relax you in the face of that stress.
Mm.
And then, it just piles on higher and higher. And you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a lack of magnesium can cause more stress, and then stress causes less magnesium, and it can just be a terrible cycle that stacks onto each other. No, I totally get that. Why talk to me about magnesium and our food products and and farming. Like I know that traditionally people say that you're going to get your magnesium from things like leafy greens. Are our current leafy greens simply have less levels of magnesium in them now because of farming practices and because our soil just doesn't have it? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, my best reference for that, Nick, is 100 years ago, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said we were getting 500 milligrams of magnesium in our daily diet. And now we're lucky to get 200.
Mm.
We
And
need
that's
that
because, and that's probably a combination of like our diet is probably not, maybe even worse now than it was back then, and farming.
Definitely. I mean, you look at the processed food intake, apparently 70% of the US diet is processed food. And it's snuck up on us like the animals, what is it, the hamsters or mice in water that you slowly heat up to boiling. You don't know it's happening. And yet we've got the linoleic acid problem. That's the omega-6 vegetable seed oils that are high inflammatory products. And we've been told, oh, sunflower and safflower oil, they're healthier than the animal fats. And all of a sudden, you look at what's in them, and we find high inflammatory omega-6 linoleic acid compared to the omega-3 oils. So, I mean, you could throw anything at me, and I'll dissect it and show you how our society has taken all the wrong turns. Yeah. When I went into med school, this is in the mid 70s. I mean, what's that? That's 50 years ago. My God. I truly thought that every doctor would get some naturopathic training behind them, because I went into medical school having seriously read all the books about nutrition, because there was not much happening back then. And I thought, oh, it's such common sense, doctors will tell people to eat right and all the good things. But man, we just dove into the dark side. And now we've got people who are told, well, you have to take this lifelong drug for your blood pressure, for your blood sugar, for your cholesterol. When I was in med school, our clinicians said only put people on drugs long enough for them to recover from what's wrong and then take them off. Mm. And we've just blown it. We've totally blown it. I mean, in my company, we get customers who are on a dozen different drugs. Yeah. And how can you cope with that? But anyway,
yeah, for sure. No, I love it. I want to talk about what your kind of habits or recommended habits look like with regards to magnesium, and like what you think about on a daily basis for your ability to hit your recommended magnesium intake. Is it like you focus on magnesium rich foods as much as you can, and then you take a certain supplement on a daily basis? Talk to us about what you look like, what your habits look like when it comes to hitting your magnesium dosage on a daily basis.
Okay, so there's magnesium, but there's all the other minerals. So what I start with first thing in the morning is like 16 ounces of water that I put a quarter teaspoon of a colorful sea salt in. When you get the 72 minerals from sea salt getting into your cells, pulling water into the cells, you start to get hydrated. When we talk about water, you're just drinking H2O, it's usually filtered, it's got no minerals in it, and it actually is going to build up outside your cells and cause fluid retention. Fluid retention is when you can't turn your first few digit joints of your digits down and make a tight mini fist. If you can't do that, you've got fluid retention. So the minerals are necessary to be inside the cells and pull water in them and hydrate the cells.
And why do you do a quarter teaspoon? That seems like a very small amount. Is that all it takes, or is it like is too much excessive, or?
I'm going to be drinking 3 of those glasses a day, so I'm going to get up to a teaspoon of sea salt, which is kind of the recommended daily allowance. I think it's 4,700 milligrams of sodium, and each teaspoon is about 5 milligrams, 5 grams. Yeah, a teaspoon is 5 grams.
Okay.
So I'm taking a quarter 4 times a day.
And is there a benefit to having this in like a 16 ounces of water compared to just getting that colorful sea salt on your food?
Definitely. The whole thing about putting minerals into the cells is you have to wait for that mineral compound. Minerals don't exist as isolated ions. They exist as a compound, like a magnesium chloride. And you have to wait in your bloodstream for those 2 minerals to disassociate into their 2 separate ions, magnesium and chloride. And then that ion will jump into the cells. So the more liquid you have your minerals, the better. You put the salt in, it has to liquefy. So it assists the whole process. And that's what I was up against, because I was taking these mineral compounds when I found out how it was when I was writing this first magnesium book, The Magnesium Miracle. I realized I was the poster child for magnesium deficiency. I tried to take magnesium. It gave me horrible laxative effect. So then I found a chemist who could make a picometer size stabilized ion of magnesium that would just stay in that liquid bottle forever and be stable enough that when you took it, it went right into your cells. From not being able to take 50 milligrams of magnesium without the laxative effect, I was taking 1,200 milligrams a day of my magnesium for really bad heart palpitations and leg cramps and headaches and insomnia and everything. I was a wreck. And that was back in my, all through medical school, I was in a tight mess because of magnesium deficiency. But anyway, 50 years later, I'm in good, I'm doing great. And it's the baseline for me. So I will then, in the 16 ounces with the sea salt, I've got my magnesium for the day. But I also have a multiple mineral that I made that it's got 12 stabilized ions, 12 mineral ions. We've got your iodine and your zinc and your copper, manganese, molybdenum, boron. I mean, it's just what you need. Rather than taking all these separate things, I put them all together. And thankfully, they played nice together and they stay in solution. And then, I may put some some of my picometer silver in there too, because silver is so important for the immune system. And one of the things I found when I was researching picometer, or tiny ionized particles of silver, is it stimulates bone marrow production, and it stimulates what people are looking for in terms of the innate cells, the base naive cells in the bone marrow, so that you can stimulate your own production of new tissue. That's why silver is so important for healing. They still use silver impregnated pads on people who have horrible burns to prevent infection. But it's not a patented drug, so it's not used. So I'm drinking these minerals throughout the day. They don't taste great, so I created a vitamin C ascorbic acid with a berry powder, so that you get a good taste. It's all about Nick, you talk about the psychology of setting goals, and you just you inspire people so well. Where I'm coming from is I make people feel good physically so that they can manifest their goals. Yeah. If you haven't slept, if you wake up apathetic and, oh, Nick wants me to walk for a half hour, I just don't have the energy. When you look at magnesium, what it does in the cells, in the mitochondria, and we hear all about mitochondria lately, and oh, what are we going to do about it? Well, magnesium is what helps make the mitochondria work to create ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is your energy molecule. So we need magnesium to wake us up during the day and put us to sleep at night.
So, you said you do basically 16 ounces of water with a quarter teaspoon of the colorful sea salt 3 or 4 times a day. You have multiple other minerals that you take. We often hear, or at least I often hear, that magnesium in the conversation of sleep. And, you mentioned it can help us fall asleep. First off, is there validity to magnesium helps us fall asleep? And if so, what is the proper type of magnesium to take in the evenings in order to help you fall asleep?
Yes, I think the way that works is it reduces the muscle tension, so you're not trying to sleep like this, so you're relaxed, and that's number one. It will support the adrenal glands. It stops the pituitary from hammering your adrenals with ACTH. So it just calms things down on a very physical level. And the sleep is so important. You have to look at it a little further. And this is what you do with your motivation. I mean, you're telling people, look, write out your goals at night, write out what you're going to do the next day. Don't let it run around in your brain. So I work with all those things as well, so that I'm not, it would sound like I'm just medicating people with magnesium and minerals, but there is a bigger picture. Yeah.
Gotcha. So magnesium reduces muscle tension. It supports adrenal glands to calm things down. So it has a very physical effect in order to calm our body down. And that's kind of the primary reason why it can be something that helps us fall asleep at night.
Yeah, exactly. And then because it makes ATP, it's going to give you energy during the day. So what you asked was, well, what form do you take? And of course, I'm always going to say my picometer stabilized ion form is something you take throughout the day. You don't treat your body with magnesium as if it's a drug. It's like, oh, I need sleep, so I'll take this at night. And the magnesium compound is not going to have as much effect. But I will say, and I always say, Nick, that because we so much need magnesium. 80% of known metabolic functions need magnesium, and we are so depleted that any amount of magnesium will help. In my world, a teaspoon of my and I can't mention names because the FDA won't let me say that my magnesium can help people. So a quarter teaspoon of my magnesium is 75 milligrams. And people will put that in their water, sip it through the day, along with other sea salted water, and they'll say they get benefits on 75 milligrams.
Mm.
So that's, in a sense, how depleted people are. Most of the original studies on magnesium for human health used magnesium oxide. And in the past few years, we found out that magnesium oxide is only 4% absorbed. 4%. The rest is a
Wow.
laxative. You take it if you want a laxative. But even on this 4% absorption, there are studies after studies showing the benefits. So, if anybody has any magnesium in their cupboard, just start taking it, but take it throughout the day. If it's a powder, even better, put it in water, sip that through the day. If it's capsules, put that in water and sip it through the day. Because if you take it all at once, even my magnesium, if I took too much all at once at this point, I mean, I did say I was taking 1,200 milligrams, which was 4 teaspoons. Now I only need a teaspoon and a half, which is like the RDA, because my body is saturated.
Mm.
So if you take like two teaspoons even of mine all at once, you'll just overload your cells. Your cells will have enough, they'll be saturated, and you'll dump the rest. But if you monitor it throughout the day, take it in increments, then your cells are going to work and need some more.
Mm.
So it's just common sense, really.
Gotcha. What I feel like I also hear magnesium in the conversation of like headaches a lot as well. What role does magnesium play when it comes to headaches?
I think it's mainly muscle. It's muscle relaxing for the headaches that come from the neck and up into the skull. But also, it's huge for migraines, which is amazing because the drugs for migraines are very toxic. They're very powerful. So what it's doing there is relaxing, I think, the blood vessels in the temple area, temporals, and these blood vessels, when they swell up with whatever, they'll put pressure on nerves that can cause migraines. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but it is very good for. I used to have a lot of headaches, and it was just from muscle tension.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. A lot of people on here are also have body composition goals because they're athletes and they want to look the way they want to look. Does magnesium deficiency, you say it plays a role in like 80% of metabolic functions. And so what role does magnesium play when it comes to like our overall metabolism and our body composition and such?
It has a big role to play in helping insulin release, the way cells open up to the insulin to allow glucose in. There's about 7 or 8 mechanisms that are important for blood sugar, for metabolism, for carbs, proteins, and fats. And so I mean, I can say from the reports I get that it actually helps with weight loss. And when you're building muscle, you don't want to have fluid retention. They go against one another. So if you've got your minerals in your cells and your fluids are in your cells and not hanging out in your joints, you will build more muscle. But I don't know, Nick, you've probably seen this. People have different, muscle building abilities. Like I'm an O blood group. And when I joined a gym back in, whatever I guess it was the 90s, I was just so pumped. It was ridiculous. My neck got so big I couldn't even button up my blouses. So you can build muscle, but not everybody can. Have you noticed that? I mean, what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, everybody inherently has different responses to resistance training and muscle building ability, but everybody has the ability to build muscle, no doubt about it. It's just a matter of how much muscle they might be able to build, and it's based off of the consistency and obviously nutrition intake and stuff like that. So I would never say that nobody, like, that person can't build muscle. That's completely false. Everybody has the ability to build muscle. It's just maybe different people have different abilities to build a certain amount of muscle, but then again, it's like everybody, that's potentially somewhat genetic, but it's also just based off of what they actually do and the consistency that they have over a longer period of time. But no, it's interesting to know that it kind of impacts insulin sensitivity and maybe some other things from a metabolic standpoint.
When you look at the medical text about diabetes, one of the factors for causing diabetes is magnesium deficiency. And, I've never heard a doctor telling a patient that, oh, you should take magnesium and you should stop sugar.
Yeah.
What medicine has done for diabetes is say, oh, well, you modify your diet somewhat, but take your metformin, and if it gets too bad, we'll give you insulin. And insulin causes weight gain. You just don't want to ride that train.
Yeah.
And the main thing is to avoid sugar. And what happens with people when they don't have their minerals is they'll keep eating. You keep eating food to try to get the nutrients out of your food. And this is what has led to weight gain. I mean, it's simplistic talk, but even a study on eating a bad standard American diet compared to an ultra processed diet, the reviewers, a doctor, I think it was Kevin Hall, he said he was surprised that the people who ate the ultra processed food ate 500 more calories a day of the ultra processed food and gained weight. He didn't know why. And it's like, it's common sense in the nutrition community that you keep eating because you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
And if you can satisfy yourself with, your minerals and your vitamins, I mean, since I've been doing all my nutrients and I have some food-based vitamins as well, I just have a very basic package. I really seriously only eat like 1.5 meals a day because I'm getting the nutrients I require, rather than just kind of in an addictive way eating food, in a craving way eating food. And it's because we're trying to get those nutrients that our body needs to survive.
Yeah. Having a nutrient dense diet is absolutely critical. Not having, empty calories, if you will, having a lot of processed foods that don't have any nutrients in them. Like you said, they won't be satiating. They won't fill you up. And so that'll continue to want to eat more and continue to have cravings and such. So that's definitely a big reason why, magnesium deficiency, whether it's a cause or a result of something like diabetes or weight gain or whatnot, is definitely has a role to play for sure. Now, last thing I want to ask with regard to what role magnesium has to play in is bone health. What role does magnesium have to play with bone health, especially as we're getting older?
Right. When I was doing the update on the Magnesium Miracle book, I came across some studies by Dr. Boland, Bolland, in New Zealand. And he's done over a half dozen studies showing that women who simply take calcium supplements are at a higher risk for heart disease. And the calcium wasn't even helping their bones. There's some studies that say, you take a lot of calcium, your bones become more brittle. And that's what's happening with the osteoporosis drugs, is they kill the bone remodeling cells so that they just allow the bone growth cells to absorb all this calcium. So they deposit calcium willy-nilly in the bone. They don't remodel it to make it, a proper lattice work. It's just a brittle conglomeration. And so there's that aspect of what's going on in the osteoporosis world. We're telling women to take a ton of calcium for their bones, and they're getting brittle bones, or they're taking drugs that make their bones brittle. And what magnesium does is it provides a lot of the soft tissue scaffolding for the bone that helps make bone more resilient. If you drop a piece of chalk on a concrete floor, it'll shatter. But in my case, a few months ago, I just slammed down on the concrete floor at my farm store and just killed my elbow, my right elbow, my left knee. My bones are all displaced here. They did not break. They did not shatter. Magnesium has made me resilient. Bones, brain, magnesium is helping both. Now, let me just, about calcium, I only recommend 600 milligrams a day, which a lot of people can get in their diet. If you have dairy, fish with bones, my example is if I grab a quart of yogurt and eat it over a couple of days, I need more magnesium. I'll get a little jumpy heart or a leg Charlie horse cramp because my calcium has pushed out my magnesium. So I know you can absorb calcium from your food. So that's why I stick with food as much as I can.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying from a bone health perspective is that yes, calcium is important, but usually people stop the conversation there when it should be extended into other things like magnesium as well. And so if you overdo it on calcium, then there can be negative side effects as well. So you need magnesium to coincide with that. So calcium in the amount of about 600 milligrams a day or so. What about magnesium? Like, to kind of finish off today, how should somebody be thinking about whether or how much I should be eating from a magnesium standpoint in order to make sure that I'm not deficient?
Well, it depends, because in my case, I'll throw that up again. I needed 1,200 milligrams for a year before I truly got rid of all my heart palpitations. So everybody is different. This is where, we can't give medical advice in my customer service, but we support people and we'll tell them to go for the RDA. Start with a small amount and work up to the RDA, which in adults is about 400 milligrams. And then if you still have what we call magnesium deficiency symptoms, and they're pretty easy to identify, headaches, eye twitching, throat spasms, heart palpitations, leg cramps. There's so many symptoms, and when you identify them and they start coming back, then, I need a little more. What happens with a lot of people when they're told, take this mineral, take magnesium, and they're sleeping better, but then another symptom will come up. They won't think of taking more magnesium. They'll run off to get one of the 100 different supplements that these supplement sites are advertising now to treat the symptoms of magnesium deficiency. In both my books, I have like 65, 68 medical conditions that are really magnesium deficiency, which are treated with drugs that cause more magnesium deficiency. So it's a terrible vicious cycle. So it's a downward spiral.
Yeah. It sounds like all of us need to, it doesn't sound like there's really many dangers or downsides of making sure that you get in plenty of magnesium. So it sounds like a lot of us are probably magnesium deficient and would definitely benefit from having some sort of supplementation or some sort of like sea salt and water and making sure we get plenty of that. But this has been awesome, Carolyn. I've really enjoyed it. I know everybody else is going to want to learn more specifics around how best to supplement, when to supplement, what to supplement with, and everything like that. So you guys need to go make sure you grab her book, Magnesium, the Missing Link to Total Health. We'll make sure we have a link in the show notes. Yeah, she's getting ready to hold it up right there. Boom, Magnesium, the Missing Link to Total Health. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. You also need to make sure you follow Carolyn on Instagram at Dr. Carolyn Dean, and you can also go to her website, drcarolyndean.com. Any other place that people should go to learn more about you?
Well, I have to keep my store site separate because, like I said, we're not allowed to tell people we can help them. So the store site is rnareset.com. And I must say, Nick, I'm really happy to be doing this podcast because it's the way to get the information out there because, there's a lot of blocking going on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, that's rnareset.com. Make sure we got that linked up in the show notes as well. But a lot of great information here on magnesium. I feel like I learned a lot with regards to what the negative impacts are of magnesium deficiency, how to start to increase the total amount of magnesium that we're having so that we can eradicate these symptoms and stuff like that. And I'm excited to go learn more myself all about magnesium because I do really believe that it is one of these missing links that a lot of us have in our health that can really satisfy a lot of the different symptoms and issues that we're having. But that's all we got, Dr. Carolyn. I really appreciate your time, and that's all we got.
Aloha, Nick.
Wow, what an amazing episode with Dr. Dean. She shares some truly eye-opening information about the importance of magnesium and how it can significantly impact our overall health. I'm not going to lie, I am convinced that almost all of us can benefit from supplementing with magnesium because of how hard it can be to get through our diet and how oftentimes we're not very diligent about getting it through our diet, number one, and then not diligent about supplementing with it as well. The main piece of value from today was understanding why it's so essential and how addressing its deficiencies can help us improve things like sleep, reducing headaches, and supporting our bone health. Before we wrap up, don't forget to follow the show on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you never miss an episode that's jam-packed with valuable health and fitness and wellness insights. Again, my 3 biggest takeaways from today's episode are: number 1, magnesium's vital role. It has so many different roles inside of our body, and it's really important. It's a really important nutrient to pay close attention to in order to optimize our health. Number 2, deficiency consequences. Understanding that there's a widespread number of issues that magnesium deficiencies can lead to, and understanding that a lot of different symptoms might actually just be a magnesium deficiency. And then third and finally, supplementation tips. Dr. Dean talks about how she takes a 1/4 teaspoon in 16 ounces of water 3 or 4 times a day. And a lot of us would really benefit from being more cognizant of magnesium-rich foods, things like leafy greens, and then adding in an additional magnesium supplement as well. If you can do these things to supplement with magnesium, you just might get closer and closer to the healthiest version of yourself and ultimately closer and closer to your best you.